Hi, everyone. My name is Yudhvir Seetharam. I'm an associate professor at the School of Economics and Finance, and I'd like to share with you my thoughts today around digital transformation. I'm going to be speaking a lot more of it in the context of AI and banking, particularly trying to ask the question of, is AI an instrument in banking or is it an instructor in banking? What we've seen, especially over the 2025 calendar year, has been a huge publicity increase in ChatGPT, generative AI, all of those buzzwords. And it makes us try to wonder whether that is driving banking or whether the people in charge, your managers, your CEOs, your board, are the ones that are using this as a tool to be more profitable in their business. One of the first use cases around AI in banking is around the marketing and sales perspective, particularly looking at what's called personalization. So what does that mean? We want to understand our customer behavior using data science methodologies. So trying to look at customers like you, businesses like you, what do they have, what don't they have? Is that therefore the right product or the right offering to sell to them? And transformation here comes in where in the past you would have done these via, let's call it traditional methodologies, not just from statistics and mathematics, but very, let's use the word linear options. And where things are going now, whether we're talking South African financial services or international, is moving away from batch processing into real-time processing. An example over there, if I just had a transaction come through my account, can I, within a split second, figure out what to then offer that customer? Maybe you've had your bonuses paid to you, and you now want to offer the customer the chance to invest and save instead of actually spending that bonus, or equivalently paying off debt with that money. Secondly, these interactions does require us to make it very personal when we communicate via marketing methods such as SMSs, app notifications, emails, phone calls. And there you can see the very easy application of using generative AI in order to equip your agents, whether they are in a call center, whether it is the marketing team that requires help in trying to write these messages to have the greatest impact. All of us would have used AI in some form or the other, whether it's on our cell phones, whether it's a student that needs some help with an assignment or an exam. How do we use AI in an ethical way to go and create content so that the agent on the phone can present the offering to you in the best possible light? Thirdly, we use AI to personalize and recommend the right solutions. What do we mean by that? If there are 3 or 4 things that are available to offer the customer, how do we rank those offerings based on, let's say, propensity? And then secondly, how do we figure out the right channel to talk to you? If I'm a busy person and I don't have time to pick up the phone, would it be more impactful to go and send something via, let's say, an SMS or an app message in order to now try and talk to me? All these areas of personalization have to be underpinned by the right measurements. If you can't measure something, management thereof becomes impossible. So we need to measure these things. Primarily due to, number one, the revenue or the profitability that we derive from these offerings. Number two, as much as we have a financial measurement, we also then need to have a customer experience measurement. Selling something is not the be all and end all of every single business, right? Businesses are worried about selling and also worried about looking after and servicing their customers. So we also need to measure customer experience in order to figure out where can we improve on them. So personalization, we've seen that across, as I mentioned, both local and international financial services companies. It is, what can I say, the current trend of transforming the methodologies, the ways of working in the marketing teams, in your sales teams. A second area, which is hardly ever talked about, is how do we see digital transformation play out in behind the scenes areas, typically your operations of the business. 3 main sort of departments over here, if I can use some examples and case studies. Number one is with risk. So in financial services, you want to identify and proactively manage the impact of fraud. And that's probably where AI has seen the greatest sort of lift. How do we become better in identifying fraudulent transactions? And therefore, now that we've identified them, how do we stop them? So there's a strong reliance reliance on having the data processes to match up with the technology. An example of there is if you're able to identify fraud in real time, you also have to have the system, the technology in place to act on that in real time. Otherwise, then the insight that you get from the data model is not actionable at all. And ultimately, to what we said previously, that lowers your customer experience. A second area in the risk space is credit risk. And here, for those of you who are familiar with financial services, there's a lot of regulations in the industry that govern how to lend in a responsible way, but also how to use data in a responsible way. So as much as AI is that next best tool that's now become prolific in media, in a lot of companies, it has to be done in an ethical way. It also has to be done in a way that merges not just the data identification, but the technology part that helps you action it. Secondly, AI in the world of operations has seen a massive impact in digitally transforming how fulfillment processes are done. You have very, very interesting and let's use the word innovative use cases here of, let's say, if a customer were to scan documents and upload it, the same way that you take a picture on your smartphone, you are able to scan that document using AI methodologies, optical character recognition in particular, and then figure out every time you upload a document, here is the address on the top right-hand side of the page. Here is the customer's name on the top left. And that really, really helps your agents focus less about trying to identify these and capture this detail and more about ensuring quality in that process. So a lot of companies have seen massive cost saving in reducing the number of agents that do these manual tasks, such as looking at a document and capturing the ID number as an example, and moving that away to something more complex, such as quality assuring that all of the ID numbers are captured correctly. This certainly then helps with another example of trying to forecast or manage capacity in the future around how many agents do you need in a business. And then thirdly, again, in the operations space, the area that we hardly hear about is human capital. AI is making a massive impact on also disrupting the way that human capital processes are being run. One example here is just screening CVs, right? Again, it's a document. There surely should be some standard bits of information and some unique bits of information. So instead of me having to screen through thousands and thousands of CVs, can I not just go and get help from, let's say, an AI bot to go and figure out, do you have, let's say, the minimum number of experience years to qualify for this position? Do you have the right educational background to qualify for this position? In some, let's call it more boundary pushing areas, AI is also being used to conduct interviews with these candidates. Although that can be a little bit scary, the idea is still there about trying to filter through a lot of the manual tasks so that your human beings, your agents, your human capital individuals can start to focus more on complicated tasks, such as mapping career paths, such as figuring out whether somebody is ethical or not through an interview and through their verbal and vocal interactions. So all of these areas, whether you're talking personalization or whether you're talking minimizing cost, there's certain considerations that you as a business owner, you as a customer, you as a South African citizen need to be aware of and need to start considering. The first one I've already mentioned around the ethics of this. Am I using AI in a fair method that is fair to all of my customers? Am I respecting and enhancing the data privacy of those customers? We've all seen so many spam calls come through on a daily basis. Is that the right thing to do if you want to go and increase sales? For some people, the answer there might be yes. Most of the time, the answer there should be no. We want to use AI in an ethical way that enhances the data privacy and also ensures fairness across all of our different types of customers. Secondly, I've already spoken to you about the real-time or batch considerations. As much as we would love to be more contextual, get to our customers faster, we also need to make sure that we don't just have the insights coming out of the data models, but we also then have the technology in place to actually communicate that speed to whoever you want from a customer perspective. All of this requires infrastructure to be in place, right? So your information systems need to be, as I said just now, needs to be hand in hand, let's use the word evolving with your AI maturity. Sometimes that requires a question of, do you simply scrap everything and start off from foundation again, building the right way? In other cases, maybe you don't need to go and let's use the analogy of removing the entire skeleton, but actually sort of modifying bits and pieces at a time. For large companies that have been around for years and years and years, it might be easier to start doing minor modifications as opposed to starting off from scratch. Each company is different, and each, in this example, CIO needs to be able to consider when is the right time to digitally transform. And then number two, how do you transform? Do you rewrite everything, or do you rework bits and pieces at a time? In using AI, you want to make sure that you have the right data quality, right? Because garbage in results in garbage out. So there has to be thought that goes into understanding the quality of your data, measuring it in that instance, and thereafter managing it. So if the quality of my data is poor, how do I look at then improving this through a set of regular interventions with, let's say, the different departments in the organization? All of these require skill sets, right? And we've heard in the media that finding these data-driven individuals could be as difficult and as rare as finding unicorns, right? I have a slightly different perspective where now we are seeing more and more individuals appear and come out based on studies, based on work experience and changing jobs and learning about these fields. I also feel that companies themselves need to change their culture, need to change their strategy in order to start incorporating AI or data science in general, data-driven decision making in general, to help them push their strategy further, to help them change their company's culture. If you are looking for data scientists and your company's culture is poor, as in nobody appreciates the use of AI, then that individual is just going to move on. Right. So it's not only on finding the right individuals, but it's also about changing the mindset of those who are currently there to see the benefit, to see the potential of data and how data can help digitally transform that business. And then lastly, one big consideration for me then is if you are, let's say, in a managerial or a leadership position, are you doing good to solve the problem today? And or are you building up that resilience in your organization to solve problems, let's say, 50 years into the future? Right? What are we doing today, and does it have an impact only today, or does it have a longer lasting impact? We want to make sure that we do things for good, and we want to make sure that we do things good, right? So that ensures that we not just have a singular mindset about financial statements, the bottom line, but we actually start looking at benefits to society. We actually start looking at benefits to the future. After I am retired, what is going to be the state of what I leave behind? In closing, all of these AI use cases we have seen being used both locally and internationally, whether we are talking about scoring customers for credit, whether we're talking about recommending sales offers to customers or to non-banked customers. All of these themes go down to three major key points. The first one is implementation of AI or implementation of digital transformation requires not just the back office data person sitting behind their desk in a dark room, working by themselves. It requires all of the different departments, back office, middle office, front office, all working together for doing good and all working together for the future good. Secondly, AI or digital transformation does require a heavy investment initially. However, there has to be that appetite in order to do something for the future, which inevitably means that you're going to have a negative return on investment for, let's say, the short term, thereafter being able to see that exponential growth to have a positive return on investment after your 3 to 5 year horizon. And then number three, using AI regularly or transforming a business regularly requires strong maintenance capabilities. What do I mean by that? It's not just about doing something and this, moving on to the next use case. It's about making that sustainable. So if you were to identify fraud in real time, you don't want the individuals part of that process to be sitting behind their laptops day in and day out. You want them to automate those solutions, and you want those solutions to then run without any human intervention on them. So what we find is that at the end of the day, we need AI to be an instrument for helping our business grow, for helping our organization increase revenue and or decrease costs. We need to then have that balance between finding the right people, the right instructors of AI who can use AI as an instrument based on strategy, based on culture. Of course, they need to work hand in hand, as I said, with other departments. What needs to be digitalized in your business? Not everything is important right now. Not everything is urgent right now. Identifying what needs to be digitalized goes hand in hand with figuring out the right skill sets and balancing that culture trend. And of course, to what I mentioned right at the beginning, we need to make sure that we have customer experience as top of mind. It's not just about reaching that bottom line, it's about satisfying and thrilling the customer so that they end up having a longer term relationship with you. Thank you.